The Matchbook Horse Racing Podcast, joined by Dan Overall and Charlie Poste to get stuck into some really competitive and flipping difficult jumps racing action, in my opinion, but not for these experts who join me. And we're also going to rattle through the Breeders' Cup as well, predominantly, well, only the turf races. We'll just do a little Breeders' Cup section, Saturday section at the very end. So if that's what you're here for, you may well have come to the wrong place, but skip forward to the end. Otherwise, we're going jumps through and through. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast if you like any of the previews that we put up and that Dan Hussey, our producer, diligently puts up across all sports. It makes it easier for you to listen to all of our stuff, and it's the best no-cost way of supporting this podcast. So do like and subscribe however you are listening or watching. I'm sure everyone's well, so I'm going to get stuck into the 3 o'clock at Wetherby. And if everyone isn't well, don't really want to know about it. So there we are. 3 o'clock at Wetherby, Charlie Hall Chase. I've just put meh because, I mean, it's great that we've got another matchup between Ahoy Senior and Brave Man's Game. I'm not sure, Dan, overall, what Brave Man's Game we're going to get. King of the Jumps, Mihal DC, incidentally, has said that Brave Man's Game is the best lay ever. There you go. Is he bottom since the Gold Cup or not?
Well, it's a good question. It's a question that comes up pretty much every year after a Gold Cup. I wouldn't be taking Punchestown Route 2 literally. That's very much end of season. And I think it's a good point about this race. We haven't had a repeat winner in a very long time. Like, who do we have to? I think we have to go back to Seymour Business at turn of the century. So we've had a winner that went back-to-back in this race. Maybe that's symptomatic of them bottoming out that season, or maybe it's just the case we haven't had a young enough progressive chaser who's won it first time out to come back a season again. I think it's hard to say whether a Gold Cup's bottomed a horse out until we've properly seen them return. I wouldn't be taking the opinion that he's finished in that respect at all. I'd say he's definitely the most likely winner here. I wouldn't say it's a strong betting race by any stretch of the imagination because you've got so many unknowns about how forward he's going to be. But I think it was a similar case last year. Like, we knew his target last year was going to be the King George. It's the same this year. He wasn't 100% last season and still won it fairly comfortably, albeit from Eldorado Allen and Sam Brown. But I think even since that race last year, he has taken his form to another level, obviously winning the King George and finishing second in the Gold Cup. So if all's relatively well with him, he's clearly the one to beat. Obviously, Ahoy Senior on his day is more than capable of winning, but we know he comes on for his first run a lot. He should get an uncontested lead, which may help, but I still think his first time out record concerns me. Midnight River's probably using this as a prep for the Coral Gold Cup. And Gentleman's Game, very likeable individual, but this is his third chase start. It's a hell of a task to beat Brave Man's Game on just your third start over fences. So kind of by default, I just thought Brave Man's Game was the one to beat. Will I be getting stuck in a short price? Definitely not, but I'd be surprised if he was beaten.
1.72 for him, 5.0 Ahoy Senior. Gentleman's Game is 6.0, Midnight River 13.0. Do you have much to add, Charlie? You don't have to.
Not really, mate. I mean, the only thing I was going to add was I was kind of hoping Ahoy Senior would turn up in the long distance hurdle race on the card. I actually fancied him way more. If he'd have been in that race, he'd have been my selection in that race. I don't think he can beat Brave Man's Game in this. So yeah, a very Brave Man's Game, like was said, he's probably not a strong betting proposition, but I think he's by far the most likely winner.
Only one winning favourite in the last 10 years, which was Q-Car back in 2015. But he's 1.72, and two of the panel can't see him beaten. The other one is very much sat on the fence. Can't see him beaten might be a bit strong, but the one to be with anyway. There we are. That's probably the weakest betting heat anyway. We come to the 115 at Wetherby, which is a half-decent looking betting heat, I'd say, with 14 in it. Top of the betting is, as it updates in front of me, Cruise Control, I think it's doubly entered, Ascot as well, 5.5, 7.0 Ladron, Eton Kalina 8.0, as is Mount Tempest. Gallic Geordie is 9.5 and bigger prices thereafter. I'll just come in on Gallic Geordie, who is a previous course and distance winner. That came back in March here off £7 lower. He's not the sort of most attractive proposition in the sense that he's a 10-year-old in here, but one of the big pluses for him off the back of an absence since the back end of March is he has a half-decent record fresh. Has a couple of times won fresh, finished second season before last. No, sorry, last season, and then was fresh, having been off since December, going into Newbury, and was sent off at the top of the market that day. Was a bit disappointing, but that's the one sort of main disappointing effort fresh. Otherwise, has a good record and will have no problem on the ground. It's very much a win and place shout. I don't know what Cruise Control's preference is. I was half interested in Ladron, but thought the horse might want a little bit further, so I wanted to play at slightly bigger prices. Charlie.
Cruise Control, his first preference is Ascot.
Okay.
So
I don't fancy him for this then.
No.
Glad I didn't put him up.
But which is the most likely to be off? I'd have said Weatherby more than Ascot anyway, isn't it? So I'd have thought he'd definitely go into Ascot. I came down with Happy and Fine for Alex Hales and Harry Bannister. Had a decent time over hurdles last year, winning a couple of races at Market Raising in Catterick. Has ended the season off 1-2-2. Starts off here off 1-2-1. Just thought it was interesting. It's a competitive race, as Tom's already said. That Alex Hales has done well with horses going chasing, certainly in recent weeks. I think No Risk with Lou and Cankin, both horses that had done okay over hurdles, but put in really good performances on their chase debut. And this horse likes to get on with it as well, Happy and Fine. And I just think if he can get into a decent rhythm on the front end, he goes on slow ground. And at 13.0, he might take a bit of pegging back. So, yeah, Happy and Fine, win and place for me.
Dan Overall.
Yeah, wide open, as you said. With Cruise Control not running, he probably would have been my pick. But I'm going to take a chance on Four de Cerisy. I say wide open race. It's going to be a big price. I think he's at 23.0 currently. First start for Neil Mulholland, who has a 21% strike rate at the track with Harry Cobden on. Tends to be a pretty good combination. He's always been a horse that's been highly regarded, like even ran in the Champion Bumper, the Envoy Ellen one back in the day. His 2 wins over hurdles both came on very testing ground, which is clearly the key to him. So he's going to get that at Wetherby on Saturday, you'd reckon. He has run very well over hurdles at Wetherby too. You go back to his chase debut at the start of last season, he was 3rd and only tied late on behind Bill Baxter and Mucho Mas. And that reads really well now. The Bill Baxter is now £26 higher in the handicap. Mucho Mas is £11 higher. He has had jumping issues thereafter, but his own 2 other chase starts, one came on unsuitably quick ground, and the other was towards the back end of the season where he may just have been over the top. They also came over 2 miles. This is going to be only his 2nd attempt, an intermediate trip on heavy ground. His hurdles run at the back end of last season also reads pretty well, and he looks handicapped to win a race of 117. I think left-handed, 2.5 miles on heavy ground is basically his ideal conditions. So I say still unexposed over fences. If he can get his jumping together, he's got a race like this in him off his mark 117.
Alrighty, it's Thor de Cerisy, win and place. That's in the 115. The 150 is the mare's hurdle, and Katira is 2.25, 3.25 even, 3.5 for Lucia, 4.0 for You Wear It Well, 7.5 for Stainsby Girl. Bigger prices thereafter. You two are Lucia. Go on, Dan.
Yeah, again, tricky. Like, you can make feasible cases for all 3. I just tend to go with Lucia just because I think I clearly think a lot of this mare. There was all the rage for the mare's novice hurdle last season, where it seemed to be revealed afterwards she had an interrupted preparation leading up to that. Still ran well in that race, not too fine behind You Wear It Well. Then went on to Aintree against the Geldings and ran another really impressive race. I think some may question whether the ground's going to be in her favour, but she did win a soft ground Sandown bumper a couple of seasons ago and made that look relatively easy. So I wouldn't be too harsh against her just based on ground preferences. Obviously, You Wear It Well, we know is a forward-going type, stays further. Stainsby Girl in here as well is going to add another pace angle to the race. So I can see it setting up pretty nicely for Lucia. Some questions may be asked as to why James Bowen's riding and Nico isn't. I wouldn't read too much into that. Nicky has no problem using James Bowen on good horses, hasn't forever. It may just be the case that James Bowen was going to be at Wetherby anyway, and it keeps Nico down at Ascot. So I wouldn't read too much into that. And I think on raw ability, I think Lucia is probably the standout. And she's going to need to be going very close here at least if she's going to end up in a mare's hurdle, which is ultimately her target.
I know you agree, Charlie. I just mine was purely prices that You Wear It Well at half a point bigger than Lucia. I think she's achieved a little bit more for all that Lucia ran really well last time. I think at the end of the season, there's every chance Lucia will be better, but you wear it well. I know she's got to give her a pound. I loved what she's done to date. Obviously, the Hermes Allen form is very good, although Hermes Allen hasn't necessarily proved that. Liked what she did at Sandown, and then she dominated at Cheltenham. She probably will go forward. For all they've often said throughout her career, she might be better with a lead. But then, well, they said that at Sandown after. In fact, she did lead early, and then something took it up. But then they went forward at Cheltenham. I'm hoping she was a bit over the top come Aintree, and I think she'll just try and dominate over the distance, which might be sharp of her best, but at half a point bigger than Lucia and even bigger than Katira. I thought she was a fair price, Charlie.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I must admit, when I was going through the race last night, they had Lucia as the biggest of the three ones at the top of the market, and I thought that was part of my angle, that I thought Lucia as the biggest price was a betting proposition because of that. But I also just wonder, Lucia's only 5. I think, you know, she had an interrupted preparation, as Dan said, and she ran with a choke out a bit at Cheltenham. I think 2 miles is probably more her optimum trip than the other two in the race, and for that reason alone, yeah, I spoke to David Minton at Cheltenham last week, and I got the impression they were really looking forward to getting this mare back out, and that they think there is still more progression to come from her, and like I say, at 5 years of age, she might just have a little bit more chance of progressing further than certainly You Wear It Well, who I do think is a really admirable quality mare as well.
The 225 is registered at the West Yorkshire Hurdle. It's another favourites graveyard to an extent, with only one favourite winning it in the last 10 years. But Time Hill is 3.0, 3.5 for Dashel Drasher. Botox High is 6.0. Galore is 7.5. And then the final pair, Red Risk and Ambitious Fellow, are 15.0. Right. Somehow, and God only knows how, Dan and I have come down on Red Risk. Now, I obviously just copied and pasted yours because it was the biggest price of the lot. So why did you like her? Why do you like him, Dan?
Kind of a process of elimination. Again, really tricky race. I kind of went down it like this. So Time Hill, if he's still 90% of the horse he was when he was in his pomp over hurdles, he'll win. But hasn't won over hurdles since 2021. Happy to kind of oppose him on that and age basis. Dashel Drasher tends to improve significantly for his first run. Won first time out last season, but he beat Voix de Rev off levels in a 4-runner race where Langadan was prepping for the spring and brewing up a storm, fell at the first. Botox is a relatively short prize considering he's had a few goes at this level now and is disappointed. Garlow's having a prep run for returning to fences, and I can't really place what Peter Farty's horse really is. So it kind of took me to Red Risk, who's actually had less runs over hurdles than Botox has, which I found somewhat surprising. And on weight-adjusted ratings, they're level. So maybe the price discrepancy I just thought was a bit on the big side. He's only had one go at 3 miles before, but he was struck into that day. So you can completely put a line through that run. But his brother and his half-brother are both pure 3-milers. So there's a reason to suspect a step up to 3 miles will bring about further improvement. He goes well fresh, as he showed last season when hacking up in a handicap of 136, then second in the Lanzarote to West Balboa, who then bolted up at Aintree, so that form looks pretty good. He loves a big galloping track, as he showed at Newbury. He's often been a strong finish over intermediate trips. Look, it wouldn't be a massively strong opinion, but I just thought in a race where I could pick holes in pretty much everything, I thought he was a bit overpriced and may just have some unexpected improvement over 3 miles.
Yeah, so that exactly where I came to him, having gone through everything and half put a line through it. Favourites graveyard, Time Hill, I wouldn't trust him at that sort of price. Dashel Drasher, he's never won over the distance. That's still a slight concern for me, given how he races, particularly first up. And I thought Ambitious Fellow, like Galore, I thought should be nearer the price of Ambitious Fellow, and then Ambitious Fellow I thought should be bigger than Red Risk, because I mean, purely on official ratings, Red Risk is rated superior and is getting weight from Ambitious Fellow. So I thought that was I just outsider of the field. Paul Nicholls, Harry Cobden, I thought was a fair enough price at 15.0. It might finish out the back of the TV, but I thought it was a horrible little race for a bet. So there you are, Charlie.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think after listening to you two, I might just back Red Risk as well, to be honest.
Perfect.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, like I said, I would, if Hoy Senior had lined up in here, in spite of the fact that he does definitely always improve for a run, I would have put him up as my selection in this, because I think it's still an interesting angle with him, with his sometimes jumping frailties, and he wouldn't be the first high quality chaser that makes mistakes to switch back to hurdles and have real upside. So it'll be interesting that. But yeah, I just came down with Dash or Drasher. Again, what Dan says, he does improve for the run, but he did win at Aintree for all that it was maybe a soft contest. But he's thoroughly admirable. I think the race will be run to suit him. I think the track will play to his advantages. And I suppose when it comes down to it, I just trust him more than Time Hill. And again, Botox has and has to give him have to give those two £4. So I couldn't really see him either. Like I say, I think you both make a really good case for Red Wrist, but I'm going to stick with Dash or Drasher. I think you're muted, mate.
Tom's mute. It's
that's bad.
Well, he gives it out week after week to Steve about doing that, and now look, shoes on the other.
On me, he did it to get out to me as well. I've done it.
Yes, look how happy Charlie is about that I muted myself and started speaking bollocks. Anyway, I won't repeat what I was giving. It was crap. So there we are. So where are we? Oh God, I tell you what, the 3:30 at Wetherby. I half thinking I should have just written no bet, which Dan did. It's frightfully difficult. Alvany is at the top of the betting, 4.5 off a mark of 126 on handicap debut. I don't know what to make of that. 6.5 is Win to the Lightning, who she's running handicaps before Albert's back. Knows how to win here as a 9-year-old, 8.0. Decorated, 8.0. Rafferty's return, 9.0. Course and distance winner. I came down win and place Charlie on Decorated. He's had his win done. Obviously, has had the odd wind issue in the past. The tongue tie went on at Taunton. That was off the back of a little break. And he went and won nicely enough with Gavin Sheehan on board. Has gone up £3 off the back of that. I mean, he clearly likes to go forward. He'll have competition for the lead, but he ticks the boxes on the ground. And he's won his last two, and he's still only rated 118. I wouldn't back the Mullins horse at all. Win to the Lightning, I thought she might want slightly better ground, and Albert's back, I feel like we know a bit more about him than the rest. So it was a very tentative win place shout at 8.0 for Decorated, in the thought that I think there could be a good bit of upside to him, but it's tricky, Charlie.
Very, very tricky. I came, and again, this wouldn't be like a massively confident shout of myself, but I'm gonna go half a piece. Win and place. Won this race a couple of years ago, and he at one stage was up to, I think, off a mark of 132. Turns up here now off 121. Ran okay on a few occasions last season. Obviously has a liking for the track, has run a number of very good races here, including wins like in this race, and shown, as he did when he won this 2 years ago, that he can go well fresh as well. So like you say, it's really tricky, but yeah, I'm gonna have a little bit on half a piece win and in the place market.
Before we move on to Ascot, I'd like to point out that Peter and Helen are having a conversation, and that's just a thing of beauty, because we go right back, Peter and Helen and the rest of us. Harry's along as well, but basically, welcome back, Helen. And I'm delighted you're here, even though DC isn't. So we can only apologise for that. But it's great to have you guys with us. Let's move on to Ascot. The 130 is over 2 miles 3. It's a novice's handicap chase. Are You Wise to That is 5.0. Passing Well, 6.0. 6.5 for Cruise Control. Apparently, this is his hopeful engagement. First choice. Ermino AA for Gary Moore is 6.5. Scarface, 7.0. Gypcot, 9.0. It's tight. One of you's Passing Well, which I was tempted with. Dan, go for it.
Yeah, it gets easier. The novice handicap chase like this, where most are making their chasing debut, and it's about 5.0 of the field. It just gets easier this day. Absolute nightmare of an affair. But I think Passing Well was slightly bigger when I looked at him. I think Connections have quite high hopes from over fences. He was 185 grand purchase when he was second in the Punchestown Bumper a couple of seasons ago. He impressed on his hurdling debut and stable debut last season when beating Issuing Authority. He's rated 122, and his form actually ties in quite a lot with a few in here. The horse in third that day is now rated 113, and he was quite well back in third, which makes Passing Well's mark 122 look fairly lenient. They threw him in the Challow straight after that, so winning a Utox the Maiden, so straight into the Challow hurdle, so clearly shows you the regard they held him in. I don't think he lost much there, finishing staying on fourth in a race that really not much got into it, as we know. Form tailed off slightly towards the end of the season. Maybe that shallow hurdle just left a mark, but he goes well in soft ground. It'll definitely be a strong stare at the trip, which, given it's probably going to be heavy, if not soft to heavy at the absolute best, I think that's going to be a key requirement in a race like this. Dam is related to a few chase winners over in France, and Jamie Snowden is profitable to back blind with chase debutants in handicaps. So he's a tentative selection, but I think in general this race will be one to follow.
All right, and Charlie Scarface.
Yeah, Scarface for me. The Tizard team are in really good form, and this horse was a second season novice hurdler last year and did okay, winning a couple of occasions and running some really decent races, including behind Outlaw Peter at Kenton in March. Before that, he'd actually pitched up in Sir Gerhard's Ballymore as well the season before last. So horse has been highly tried. Looks like he's got plenty of scope for chasing. And yeah, I mean, it was really, really tricky, this race. Very interesting race for the future. But yeah, I came down with him, a tentative selection in what's going to be a really informative contest.
The more I look at my selection, the more I think, what a shocking fucking selection this is. Like, this is just terrible, and I can only apologise. Why have I? Fuck, he's useless.
You're oozing confidence here.
He's useless. Like, how do you even make a case for this horse? And he's not even that big. He's 13.0. Sir Psycho. Let me sum up Sir Psycho. I think he hates the game. He had 2 years off, having been sent off at 10.0 in the Greatwood. He had 2 years off. He came back first start over fences. He jumped right at the first, and he jumped right and fell at the second. He then came back over hurdles, beating 25 lengths, 21 lengths, and 19 lengths. He's only 13.0. I guess the plus side is that he's changed. A change of scenery might just do him good.
How's he not favourite?
Why is this horse not on top of the betting? Fuck, it's a bad shout. I feel I should have put no bet, but he's, who knows? He on his old form. If he still half fancies it, he's capable of this sort of mark 127 definitely, and heavy ground is absolutely no problem. Although that form was nearly 4 years ago, so yeah, who knows? Harry Derham, get your wand out.
Oh God, no! It's going from bad to worse.
Delete this whole.
Let's clip that whole
tip. What an awful selection that. I know. I can only apologise. Half a point win and place Sir Psycho. You have to be to back him. Right, let's move on. The 205, you're still with us and haven't switched off. The Burn Group Plate Handicap Chase, 2 miles and a furlong for this. Boot Hill is 5.0, as is Red Rookie, 6.5 Frere Dames. Saint Segal is 7.0. Funambol Savola 9.0. First Flow 11.0. Bigger prices the rest. Charlie.
Harry Derham, get your wand out. I mean, that is quite something. Yeah, it's in a...
Get your wand out, Harry.
Moving swiftly on. I mean, what a race! This is another cracking race on a really good card. I came down with a Cap de Matan for me for Sir Psycho's former trainer Paul Nicholls. This also. Second, well, obviously first season out of novice chasing, but did really well last year. Good win over Lac de Constance at Exeter, and a couple of decent runs through the spring, including at Kenton behind Whist in the Dark. I just thought that he was really interesting. One, he's off a nice lightweight 10.5, and two, Freddie Gingel's on taking the 7 off, so bringing him down to a mark of 128. The Nicholls also are flying at the moment. They look like they're primed and ready to go. And I'd have thought with a horse like this, he would have flagged this up as a really good opportunity to win big money with a horse that possibly isn't going to be as progressive potentially into the big spring festivals and handicaps there. So yeah, Cap de Matan for me, win and place.
I will go first. Flo, who he likes Ascot. He loves cutting the ground, which he's going to get. Although miraculously he did win that Peterborough Chase on good ground, but ultimately he wants cutting the ground, and he's well treated off 158 and the Bailey Yard off the back of a disappointing season last year. Certainly strike rate wise, that was not up with their best. They've started this year in much better form. They're already over a third of the way to last year's total, and there should be some well treated horses in the yard. 11.0. I mean, he's got previously still got it as an 11-year-old, but I thought that was fair enough win and place for a horse who's got form at the track with cutting the ground and looks fairly well treated. Dan.
Well, I'm happy to make Harry happy anyway. Red Rookie is my selection. Yeah, I think this race is absolutely tailor-made for him. He was entered at Cheltenham last week, but the ground was too quick. I think that may actually end up being a blessing in disguise that he missed that engagement, because I think this is set up perfectly for him. He's always promised to have one of these big extended kind of 2-mile handicap chases in him. He's won a couple of smaller races, don't get me wrong, but heavy ground and extended 2 miles is absolutely perfect for him. His record on soft to heavy, running over 2 miles to 2 mile 2, is 4 wins from 4 runs. That does include hurdles as well. Emma Lavelle has started the season on fire, a 33% strike rate since the start of October. I think this is his chance to land a big 2-mile handicap, because I don't think he's necessarily got £10 in hand, but when conditions are like this, he is at the top of his game.
All right, that feels like that should be your best bet. Is that your best bet?
Nope. Next one.
Oh, it's the next one. Of course it is. All right, 3:15. We're over just shy of 2 miles for this handicap hurdle. Our champ is 5.0, 6.5 for Rare Middleton. Altobelli is 9.5, as is Knickerbocker Glory, Teddy Blue, the same, and bigger prices thereafter. So go on, you better come straight in there. Straight in, Dan, with your...
Why have you said it like that again? Come straight in there. Okay. This is not a good podcast for us. Okay, composure. So the best bet is going to be Knickerbocker Glory. So 3 of the past 4 winners of this race have made all to do so. So that was Gumball, Kid Commando, and Highway 102 last season. This race, again, I think it's just set up perfectly for Knickerbocker Glory's run style, and he absolutely loves soft ground. You can put a line through Aintree last time out because he just made a ridiculous pace in the conditional jockeys race. That was not a fair reflection. I think if you go back to his second behind Icheo in the Imperial Cup, that was much more what he's about. He's only £1 higher for that, and Tristan Dorrell takes off £5 here. So £4 technically lower for when he was second in the Imperial Cup, which is obviously a very good handicap. He actually took well to chasing last year, but they are sticking to hurdles with him because they know there are so many valuable pots like this throughout the season. And when he gets heavy ground, he's a very, very good horse on his day. I thought it was interesting that Dan Skelton had a few entered here, including Langer Dan, who initially, I was tracking the declarations, was declared, and then they saw Campron got declared instead. So I think they just wanted to make sure that Knickerbocker Glories was getting a reasonable racing weight. They took him out as soon as Campron came out. He's now top weight. So I think he's their main hope here, with Tristan being on board. I say Harry's up at Wetherby, so I'd say he's the stable jockey for Ascot. I can see him giving a really bold shout in front. If one catches him, that would be a shame, but he's going to give you a run for your money with conditions absolutely ideal.
I didn't want to back our champ, who I thought, the evidence would suggest wants better ground, and this isn't going to be that. Then Rare Middleton, I thought as a 4-year-old was shorter than he might be. His form isn't one to go crazy about. He's had his win done. It's going to be testing ground. Then you got to Altobelli, who has one we cut in the ground, and the only disappointing run came in the very top level company in that top novices hurdle. So it's interesting that he was thrown into that. Prior to that, I was very impressed with him. So at the prices, 8.5, I thought he was a little bit big to have good to have a win and place shout on anyway, but it is tentative. I just didn't want to play towards the top of the betting like most of the races. Charlie?
Yeah, I have come down with our champ. I mean, he had a second at Plumpton, granted, probably lesser competition than this on soft, but I think the horse has been transformed by the move to Chris Gordon. And I mean, he literally looked like he jumped in the last day at Cheltenham. Afterwards, Chris was talking about graded novice hurdles for him later in the season, potentially the Dovecote and races like that. Well, if that is a potential feasible aim, then 128 should still be a workable mark. And there's just every chance that he could be very, very upwardly mobile, this horse, and he already looks on that sort of curve. And like I say, watching him go around Cheltenham the way he won there, if he handles this ground, I'm not sure an £11 rise is going to be enough to stop him from going in again, because he just looked very, very good. And he's gone to Chris's 2 from 2 there, and I don't see this being the ceiling of his improvement. And like I say, if Chris thinks that he could be winning graded races come the spring, then he'd want to be very, very competitive in this, even off this new mark.
All right, that's the 3:15 done. We now come to the 3:45. Last of the British races we're previewing. 3 miles, the Sodexo Gold Cup, Sodexo Live Gold Cup. Monbeg Genius is 4.33, 6.0 for Beauport. Doesn't stay. 9.5 Eldorado Allen, as is 2 for God 11.0, Larry 12.0, Yeah Man 12.0, Phlegmatic and 13.0 and bigger thereafter. I'll get my selection out of the way because it's another utterly shocking shout. Honestly, if you look at the horses that I've put up at Ascot, Sir Psycho, First Flow, Altabelli, who is, that's a guess, and Victorino. Jesus, Victorino having his second start for Venetia Williams since coming over for France. He had his first go over hurdles and frankly looked fairly average. The only plus is that he jumped fences over in France. The trip should be absolutely fine on that. And for all it's not Venetia Williams season yet, it's going to be very testing ground, I hope. So Victorino at 15.0. But can you tell I'm not too confident? Charlie, I hope you're confident.
I am confident. Maybe your selections could all have their own race at Ascot.
They really should, actually. First Flow against Sir Psycho. I'm not sure Altabelli will last in the jumping fences, and then Victorino. It's just, honestly, it's the sort of day where I've just got the white flag out and guessed at big prices, hopefully, hoping that I land one. It's just...
I'm going to have to stick these in a lucky 15, though. That's the thing. I'm going to have to, because the value, if these come in.
Look at it. I mean, to be fair, for Daniela Melli, he did all right. And now he's back over fences.
He loves seeing the back end of Diamond Carl.
He likes Diamond Carl, or he likes following him.
It's just the sort of day I wouldn't normally have a good old punt. I'd just sit there but I'd rather be honest rather than be like, really fancy this Victorino. Anyway, might win. And the angle is very testing ground, back over fences. There you go. Also, I prefer Charlie Deutsch on the pace, but this is a hold-up horse. Anyway, Charlie, or someone.
Oh my God. Monbeg Genius for me. I got on the other end of the spectrum. I've just gone with also I am really confident about it. He was ultra progressive last year, ended up with a third in the Ultima behind Corette Rambler. Obviously, we all know the strength of that form. It's been advertised time and time again. And you almost got the impression that on the day the O'Neill team as a whole were actually disappointed. I think they genuinely thought that this horse would win. He's only a 7-year-old. I think there's way more still to come. I think the mark of 147 is workable. I do think there's even the capacity he could end up as a level weights graded chaser and staying chaser in the spring as well. So he's 4.5 or something like that. And in an ultra competitive race, but there's still 55 grand on the line. I'd imagine he's going to be tuned up and ready for this. And yeah, I think he's a really good bet, Monbeg Genius. Really good bet.
And
yeah, in agreement. I was slightly surprised. I was looking at this race last night. I was kind of basing it on him not running, but now that he is, I think it's very hard to look past him. He's the progressive one in the lineup. He's not top weight because of Eldorado Allen being in there as well. That Ultima form is rock solid, as Charlie said. And John Joe did win this a few years ago with Go Conquer, who finished 5th in the Ultima the season before going on to win this. Our Power last season had Ultima form in the book before coming here. So it's a proven route to success. I'd say he should be going very close if he's the horse I think he is.
All right. Sucks to be you guys when Victorino wins. It's going to be embarrassing.
Oh, God.
What have we got now? Straight into the Breeders' Cup. Good. So we're all looking at we're looking at the turf races. This is Charlie and I. Charlie, just one for you, so take it away, and then I'll come in after.
Just in Spiral for me in the filly and mare turf. She was very good the last day over a mile, and this track is a real sharp circuit. So I don't see the step up to a mile and a quarter. I actually think around this track it's a real plus for her. She'll love the ground. Obviously, Frankie is flying. I think he sees it as his best chance on the evening. And I'm really keen on Inspiral, and even more so as you're opposing her, which seems to go well for me when I'm with her and you're against her.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, I was against her last time. She was really good last time. Gosh, she absolutely bolted up. It's just more that at the prices, which I haven't got up in front of me, which is rather stupid, but I will do because it adds to my case. So it's 7.10, isn't it? So she is atop the betting, unsurprisingly. Oh no, I haven't got the right race. This is going well. I picked up the 9.10.
She's 3.25.
Thanks, mate.
3.5.
There you go. I would rather back Warm Heart at a bigger price because we know she stays the distance, and in Spiral she has it to prove at the distance. I can't find many, if any, fillies that have won this having tried the distance for the first time. And obviously the important thing, it being at the track. But when Dank won it at Santa Anita, she previously won the Beverly D. That's over just half a furlong shorter. Queen's Trust had been tried over 10 furlongs before, possibly even a mile and a half. Iridessa had won over 9, been tried over 10. So I think she's got to prove she wants the distance in Spiral. She's a Frankel filly, I get that, but there's not much stamina on her dam side, and I think she's worth taking on over 10 furlongs, basically. And I think maybe a little bit too much is made of, the track, and I'll come to this in the mile, but how, you've got to be on the speed, and, faster horses at the trip win it. It's not always the case. If they get going turning for home, then you've got to stay to win it. And Warm Heart, I've been massively impressed with, to be honest. 3-year-olds have got a good record in the race. They've got a good record in turf races as a whole. And she's not slow, Warm Heart. She proved that when she won at Newbury and beat Blue Stocking. She's won a couple of times over 10. And I know she stays further, but she's certainly not slow. So I would much rather back her at the prices than in Spiral stepping up in trip. So although I don't make in Spiral an out lay. So Charlie's with Inspiral, I'm with Warm Heart. Then coming on to the 8:30, I want to be pretty well against Morge, and there's a few I could have backed. Just the reasoning for this, again, is she's a filly that likes to be on the speed, Morge. Her Guineas form is obviously very strong. But if you go back to winners over the mile here, Goldacova won twice here. One of those was from off the pace. The other one was tucked in behind. Wise Dan, I think, wasn't too far away. Wise Dan was off it. Caraconti was well off it, drawn 14. Taurus came from off the pace in 2016. Uni came from mid-division in 2019. Again, I think this is a race where you can come from off it. And I think the market overreacts to horses being well drawn on the speed. So I wouldn't put a line through Master of the Seas out of 14. Songline, I think, is a big danger. She tends to be ridden patiently. She's out of 10. But at the prices, Kalina, who beat Kinross last time at 8.0 out of stall number 11, that's obviously seen as a real negative. But that Kinross form is very good. And I think this could work out absolutely ideally. There's a few Americans and Morge who like to go forward and get on with it. So I will chance her at 8.0. The silly one at Santa Anita is Broome. He is a massive price at 51.0. This is in the Breeders' Cup turf. I think blinkers on will suit him. And when he goes on his travels, particularly to America, he's got a really good record. He ran really well in this race when finishing second to Yibia. And if he can run up to his even a couple of pounds short of his peak, he's potentially third, fourth best in this. Yes, Auguste Rodin will probably win. I'm not convinced on Mostadaf over a mile and a half, but I know this is a tighter track, but I don't know. I'm not convinced King of Steel either, upped in distance. So I think Auguste Rodin out of those three will come out on top, but I can definitely make a case for for Broome with blinkers on for the first time, just to sharpen him up from the trip he's been running over this season, is a massive price, and he's often overlooked. And then in the sprint, my heart says I would really love Adam West's horse Living the Dream to win this, but at 4.5, Sean Corraine, Adam West, and Living the Dream at the Breeders' Cup is not for me. I think there wasn't a massive element of fluke about the Nunthorpe. I don't think he's a better horse than Highfield Princess and Brad Sell. I think it was a case of Highfield Princess certainly running below form, and there was a bit of York factor in that. You get some funny ones on the straight track there. He showed loads of pace at Keeneland last time. The sectionals were so impressive, and maybe he'll stay there. But these are up against proper American turf sprinters, and the Americans have a really good record in this. I know Glass Slippers won it, but otherwise the other 9 winning trainers in the last 10 years have all been Americans. Caravel, she won the race last year. She's kept her form very well since, and I would far rather back her with Tyler Gaffleone on board at 8.5 than I would 4.5 Living the Dream. So those are my Breeders' Cup horses. Done. Where do we go next? Any other bets? Nothing for me. Dan.
Yeah, so I'll flag up the one who I put up on the Horses to Follow show, and that's Immortal, runs in the 1255 at Ascot. I think he's extremely well handicapped, 110. I actually thought, given Nicky's more cautious nature, that he'd run in the maiden hurdle first before going into a handicap, but they must be of the opinion that 110 is too good to waste. Once soft ground, he'll get that. Freddie Gordon in conditional and amateur jockeys races is 4 from 11. He claims 6 here. I'm slightly concerned he's had a second wind-up already. He's only had 2 runs and now 2 wind-ups. That is a concern. But for now, I think a mark 110 is more than fair. And if he isn't going close here, I'd be very disappointed.
Charlie, your other bet.
Yeah, Little Miss Dante in the 12:32 at Ayr on Saturday. She won her second start in bumpers, and I know she's very, very well regarded by the yard. And I'm not quite sure what sort of price she'd be. I mean, it'll depend on the depth of the race at Ayr, but I think she is a filly that's going to go on to do very, very well over hurdles this year. She's a sister to Go Dante, who's also trained by Ollie and has done reasonably well, probably a little bit of an underachiever. But this filly always went like a sharper type of horse than him, and yeah, I think she potentially is better than him, if I'm being honest as well. You know, she was, like I say, she was very good when she won her bumper on her second start, and her schooling has been good. And yeah, I can see her progressing very well throughout the year. In the other division, Indivar Blur, who I put up on the Jumpers to Follow as well, runs, but I would imagine he will be a very short price in that race.
I don't know, because he's got Florida Dreams in there. So that is the entry bumper winners against him. So that's going to be a
nice
race.
Yeah, as in, I only literally glanced through that, so it'll be very interesting. We will get a firm line on where he sort of stands and Indivar Blur moving forward. So
yeah, definitely.
Alrighty, Matchbook Zero long shot. Don't forget Matchbook Zero. You're most likely to be getting best odds because of the nature of the exchange and the fact that there's zero margin and zero commission. As you can see from the screen, if you are watching, they are enhanced odds from the exchange because you get best, or likely to get best odds, given the fact there's zero margin, zero commission. They are win-only bets, though. So if you fancy anything at a half-decent price for the win, well worth heading over to Matchbook Zero to take advantage of the enhanced prices. Market goes live at 10 a.m. each day. Win-only bets. Mine is First Flow. Already told you he's got no chance. Charlie?
He capped the Matan in the same race at Ascot.
And Dan?
Ford Cersei in the 115 at Wetherby.
The Jump Show says, can you make sure we get Dan's selections for the Breeders' Cup, please? That's ultimately a bit piss take, isn't it?
Well, based on what you've been going on about, Tom, with some of the confidence behind your selections, I'll just lay anything you've put up, I think. That might just be my
Name who's going to have written that. Who will have written that? Which individual?
That'll be Jake Price who's written that.
Thanks, Jake. Welcome along, Jake. Feel free to put up your selections as well for the Breeders' Cup. The greatest show on turf. I won't do that again. Best bets. Mine's Warm Heart in the Breeders' Cup. 7:10. Charlie.
Lucia in the Mares Hurdle at Wetherby. Quite a long distance away from the Breeders' Cup.
Dan.
Knickerbocker Glory in the 3:15 at Ascot.
Great stuff. Thanks for joining us, everyone. Don't forget insights.matchbook.com for a recap of all of our best bets. Please do like and subscribe. Why wouldn't you? Have a great weekend.